Okay, I think we are ready to start. Is that okay with you, Jocelyn and Strain?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I know it's the last session and it's, after lunch. And so we're all gonna be going through this together, hopefully quickly. And, you all will learn a little bit more about Title IX if you don't already know what it is. So let's go ahead and start with some introductions before we get into the fun stuff. My name is Gladys Snowfit. I am the Deputy Title IX Coordinator here at Fresno City College, and I'm going to have my counterparts go ahead and introduce themselves as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jocelyn Prado. I'm a human resource analyst at the district office, and my position is Title IX investigation and coordinating.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarang Nim. I'm also a human resource analyst with the district office and a Title IX coordinator and investigator as well.
Awesome. Okay, so here is a quick look at what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be going over, what is Title IX, related protections pertaining to Title IX, some categories that fall under Title IX, rights and obligations, how to report if, you are made aware of a Title IX incident. We're going to be going over a lot of case studies and we're asking for participation. So be prepared for that. And then we're going to close it out with our contact information as well. And so just some housekeeping rules. Throughout this presentation, you're going to hear terms like complainant and respondent. These terms we use quite frequently in Title IX. So complainant is an individual who is making the report or the complaint, and then the respondent is the person who is responding to the complaint, or also known as like the person who's being accused. And so just keep those in mind. And then during the session, if you have questions, please drop your questions into the chat. Sarang will be monitoring it for us, and then we'll answer them at the end of the session. We also reserve time at the end for any questions you might have as well. So we have a short video for you all to watch about the origins of Title IX.
In the 1960s, the civil rights movement was thriving. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were both passed, expanding government protections to citizens of all backgrounds. But a few brilliant people knew that more needed to be done to specifically advance women in all areas of society. Back in 1969, a part-time teacher at the University of Maryland kept applying for a full-time position, but was told she wasn't being hired because she came on too strong for a woman. Motivated by this rejection, Bernice Sandler researched her rights and found what she needed: a 1967 executive order signed by President Lyndon Johnson that barred organizations with federal contracts from discriminating on the basis of sex. With the order in hand and the help of the Women's Equity Action League, she filed a class action complaint against all universities and colleges in the country. In 1970, Sandler shared her experience with the U.S. House of Representatives Edith Green Subcommittee on Higher Education. In these hearings, the foundation of Title IX was set and a bill was formed. In the House, the legislation was championed by Green and Congresswoman Patsy Takemoto Mink, who worked tirelessly to ensure passage of Title IX. Mink knew discrimination firsthand as well.
It's always been my belief that so long as any part of our society adheres to a sexist notion that men should do certain things and women should do certain things, then we'll never be rid of the basic causes of sex discrimination.
As a child, Mink dreamed of becoming a medical doctor, but after earning her undergraduate degree from the University of Hawaii, she was rejected from 20 medical schools because of her gender. Mink pivoted and decided to pursue a law degree instead. But even after earning her degree, Patsy found it difficult to get work in the legal profession. because of her status as a married woman.
Very difficult getting into school and getting into the professions. I couldn't find a job. And when I have my contemporaries at home say, oh my goodness, what you've done to politics at home, and wish we had never heard of Patsy Mink, I'll say, well, it's because of all of your attitudes that drove me into politics. If you'd given me a job when I came in for law school, I would have been very happy to draw your paycheck each month.
Patsy Mink eventually found her place in politics, winning a seat in the House of Representatives in 1964, becoming the first woman of color to serve in the U.S. Congress and a central figure in the Title IX legislation. Title IX was formally introduced in Congress by Senator Birch Bayh of Indiana and was its chief Senate sponsor for congressional debate when it finally became law in June of 1972. It's 37 words. Within those 37 words, there's the word activity. And I knew Senator Birch Bayh pretty well. He's one of my heroes. He said they kept like, should we leave it in? Should we take it out? Should we leave it in? What does it pertain to? We really don't know. But it'll be a catch-all, maybe. Maybe. They weren't sure if it was even necessary. In 1972, he didn't rate. In the 1960s,
That was a great video. It's a clip from a series on PBS called Groundbreakers. So y'all can go check that out if you have time. So, as you've heard, Title IX has been around for quite some time now, but a lot has changed since it was enacted in 1972. Now there's a lot more talk about Title IX because of like new regulations that come out every time we have a new president or administration. There's also increased awareness, there's like media attention. Also, there's greater accountabilities for schools as well. And so, as that video stated, there's about 37 words, right? Or 37 characters within Title IX, but and it's a bit wordy. So I'm going to give you like the breakdown version of it. And Title IX is a federal regulation that protects us from gender and sex-based discrimination, like sexual harassment, in our educational programs, activities, because we're an institution that receives federal funding. And who does Title IX protect? It pretty much protects like everyone and anyone who's associated with Fresno City College or State Center Community College District as well. So there's applicants, right? So any of our students applying for any of our schools within the district, also those who are applying to work for the district as well is covered. There are students who are full-time, not for credit or non-credit, not for credit, dual enrollment. They're protected. Employees, whether they're full-time, part-time, or student workers, and also vendors, those that we contract with, right, for construction and food services and special events. Evolution and related protections. Like I mentioned before, Title IX has been around since the 70s, and there are some related protections that came out, such as like the Clery Act, VAWA, SAVE Act, and Dear Colleague letters. All of these subsequent protections, it just builds on Title IX by setting like clearer rules for us for addressing sexual violence, improving campus safety, and protecting like all the individuals involved as well. And so some common categories or Title IX violations that we see here on the campus, there's athletics. So Title IX ensures that all genders have equal opportunities to play sports. This includes like fair access to scholarships and equipment, facilities, and support. And then there's also pregnancy-related conditions as well. So Title IX ensures that pregnant students are not discriminated against and they can remain fully involved in school. Reasonable accommodations can be provided as needed. And what's reasonable, it really just depends on like the student's medical needs and also the course at hand as well. So, if a student, discloses to you that they're pregnant or they need accommodations or requesting accommodations, those accommodations has to be reasonable. And I guess the rule of thumb would be, reasonable in that it doesn't alter the fundamentals of the course, right? So, and if you are having some trouble figuring out what's reasonable, feel free to contact me and then we can go through that together. And then if you are an employee who's pregnant, you may request reasonable accommodations through the district office. And lastly, there's sex and gender-based discrimination and misconduct. So Title IX protects people from unfair treatment based on sex or gender, including gender identity, sexual orientation, and pregnancy. It also covers sexual misconducts like sexual harassment, sexual assault, domestic and dating violence, and stalking. And then I'm going to hand it over to Jocelyn to go over obligations.
Thank you, Gladys. So what are our obligations as a district? On a basic level, our obligation is to stop the behavior. That is the harassing or violent behavior, to remedy the situation by determining the threat level and how supportive measures can be applied, and to prevent reoccurrence. So supportive measures might be that a student who is pregnant requires extra restroom breaks, or a student who is being threatened needs a police escort, or at least a buddy to walk them to their car. Supportive measures are not that a complainant gets to work from home or that a respondent is put on leave. In fact, in Title IX, if you take any action that is deemed punitive to either party, it can be a procedural violation. That does not mean that that there is not a legitimate safety threat. It's just that we cannot take measures to remove somebody in a Title IX situation without a review. So the complainant doesn't get to decide that that is something that occurs. The police don't decide it. The president doesn't decide it. It's something that's decided by the coordinator in conjunction with others to have those conversations to see if that is something that is necessarily in that situation. You'll hear a lot throughout our presentation and our case studies later. Our responses are going to be, it depends, because every case is different. We don't have cookie cutter ways to deal with each situation that occurs. So I mentioned earlier the police. So we cannot rope in the police in a Title IX situation unless the complainant gives us permission, unless they are a minor. If it is a minor, we will automatically involve police. But if they are not a minor, the complainant has to give that permission for us to be able to do so. And in those situations are typically the sexual assault situations. So without a complainant giving permission, we cannot involve the police. Another term that we use within Title IX is called SPU. And those are the jurisdictional requirements that an incident must meet in order to be classified as a Title IX incident. That stands for severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive. And an incident has to meet all of those. So it might meet severe and pervasive, but not objectively offensive. So it would not fall within Title IX, but that does not mean that we stop. We still would proceed with an investigation under other policies and procedures. Next, thank you. So for rights and obligations under Title IX, to summarize, we have, parties have the right to a reliable and impartial investigation and to be free of retaliation. So part of the reliable and impartial investigation involves opportunities to have an advisor, opportunities to review the evidence that is provided within an investigation, an opportunity to review the report, and at a hearing to have cross-examination. So the complainant has the right not to report to law enforcement unless they are under the age of 18. There is no confidential reporting in Title IX because the respondent has that right to cross-examination. I kind of already touched on our district's obligations, but part of that, as I had previously said, is impartial hearings. providing supportive measures, preventing any kind of reoccurrence, stopping the behavior, providing supportive measures, and then we have the live hearing component of the Title IX. So that is where both parties are present. Each party has the opportunity to cross-examine each other. Next slide, thank you. Responsible employees. So who is a responsible employee? Well, that is everybody. It is written within our BPs and ARs that every employee of state-centered community college district is a responsible employee and has a responsibility to report any sexual misconduct that they are made aware of or see to a Title IX coordinator. So at the college level, you have Gladys as the Title IX coordinator for students. And at the district level is Christine Phillips, our Title IX coordinator for the district, and who assists with handling the employee complaints. So if you are made aware of a complaint, it's important to let the individual who is informing you of the complaint that you are a responsible employee and you're required to report what you are being told to a Title IX coordinator. There are some areas in which confidentiality is there, and that is within our health services. So if you're a health services staff member or mental health services, we understand that there are some employees that might have licenses that have that component of counseling or therapy, but unless you are operating under your license, that does not apply. It would still, you are still considered a responsible employee who has to report. So what would you do? As I said, you're just going to go ahead and make sure that you are letting your Title IX coordinators know. So students, you would let Gladys know, and employees, you would let Christine know. So this slide right here, what it is it shows the data that we have received over the last 5 years for Title IX incidents that have been reported in regards to Fresno City College. In the 2024-2025 school year, we received about 22 Title IX reports, and those involved allegations of sexual harassment, stalking, domestic violence, and sexual assault. District-wide, which is not listed here in the charts, but district-wide, we had about 47 employee Title IX reports that involved allegations of sexual harassment, sexual assault, fondling, discrimination based on sex, hostile work environment, and retaliation.
Awesome. Thank you, Jocelyn. So we're going to go ahead and go into some case studies. I hope you all participate, whether it's unmuting yourself and, saying the answer or your answer or putting it in the chat. Please help us out and be engaged. All right. So case study number 1. You are attending a college-sponsored reception event. The reception includes refreshments and alcohol is available. Several employees and student workers are present. During the event, a student worker who appears to have been drinking begins making sexually suggestive comments towards another student. The comments are unprofessional and unwelcome, and they continue even after they attempt to redirect the conversation or distance themselves. Is this a Title IX issue? Okay, I might give you all a little bit of time to think about it and, put in your answers. No worries, this is a learning environment. We're all learning about Title IX together, so feel free to put in your input. Okay, so we see some yeses in the comments. Why do you say yes? Or can there be a little bit of explanation?
Is anyone willing to unmute
I'll chime
themselves?
in. It's
Thank you.
unwanted sort of human reproductive information that's not appropriate for a professional environment.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have in the comments, because it is a college-sponsored event and meets SPU, that is also great. Okay, so for this case study, yes, this could potentially be a Title IX issue. Title IX protects students and employees, right, from sex-based harassment. So in this scenario, the behavior is sexually subjective and is also unwelcome. It's happening in the context of a college-sponsored event where there's both like employees, student workers, and students that are present. The behavior also continues after, there's an attempt to redirect a conversation or to distance themselves as well. So, it just shows that, it's inappropriate and potentially harassing. So what you would do is, report this to the Title IX coordinator, or encourage that person, right, if you're a bystander, encourage that person who's affected to report it to the Title IX coordinator.
And in this particular situation, if you can go back, Gladys, really quickly. Okay. In this particular situation, the comments are being made by a student worker. So student workers actually are employees of State Center. So they're a student and an employee. So it kind of gets a little murky in that sense. And on our side, we would determine if it is the student worker is making these comments in their capacity as an employee, or if it's made in their capacity as a student. And that's just something that would happen on our end, but just want to make you aware that student workers are considered employees.
So case study number 2, a pregnant student in a biology course is scheduled to begin a lab unit that involves exposures to certain chemicals. The professor, concerned for her health, quietly tells her she should skip the lab sessions and offers her a written assignment instead. The student later tells another faculty member that she felt excluded and didn't agree to the change. She wanted to discuss accommodations, but wasn't given the chance. Is this a Title IX issue, and what would you do? All right, what are y'all thinking for this one?
Well, did the student come to us? Like, we're faculty and the student came to us and explained the situation? Like, I'm trying to, like, or are we another student who saw this happen?
So, for this case study, the scenario is, I guess it could be either way, right? So a student, you could be that other faculty member, and the student is telling you that, hey, this is what happened in another class that I was in, or something like that, right? With another instructor. And so if you were that faculty member, what would you do with that information that was provided to you?
Well, I would think that perhaps it would prompt further investigation. I'm not so sure it qualifies yet, because it seems like there would be more to it. The one statement that might set us off with it is the fact the student said she didn't get a chance to discuss.
Yeah.
So
Well,
with
the
that
professor of the biology class is not allowed to approach the student and like, that's not allowed. Like, I mean, the student can come to you and let you know that they're pregnant and are seeking reasonable accommodations, but you can't go to a student and assume they're pregnant, even if they're like,
Yeah,
so
I
you're
agree
not
with
allowed
that.
to. Like, legally, you're not allowed to.
I agree.
So-
And where the information comes from, of course, did the student say, I'm having issues, or is it just an assumption? Then if it's just an assumption, yeah, I think there's a problem with it.
Yeah, basically, the professor of this biology class violated Title IX.
Yeah. No, that's true. If it were a student coming and saying, hey, I'm going through cancer treatment or something, and then was approached, okay, but yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that discussion. I am so
Yes.
proud. I'm so proud, because that is spot on. You don't ask a student, whether or not they're pregnant, you know, they have to disclose that to you, and it gets kind of awkward, right? If you ask and they're not, and or whatever it may be, right? You don't want to assume things. So,
No.
you know, the better approach is to have the student, you know, come to you, disclose that, you know, medical condition, or if they're pregnant or whatever it is, to you, right? And kind of go from there. You know, again, Title IX protects students from discrimination based off their pregnancy, childbirth, false pregnancy, termination of pregnancy, and even recovery in certain circumstances, right? And so in this case, the professor, you know, on their own decided that, you know, the student should skip these lab sessions due to their pregnancy without their consent, right? And so that's a no. Although, you know, I understand, like, you know, the professor might have some concerns. They might think like, oh, you know, these chemicals might be harmful to the student and to, you know, the baby or whatever it is, right? So we understand that, you know, the tension's there, but, you know, this is up to the student to decide, right? Whether or not they are willing and can participate or not, right? So that is for them and their medical professionals to determine, right? So what I usually suggest or encourage is, like, you know, if you are dealing with certain labs that have certain chemicals, or, you know, whatever it may be, you know, have the student go and discuss that with their medical provider to see if it's safe to even participate, and then they can make their own, you know, determination whether or not they want to participate. So that would be the safer route.
Best thing would be to make an announcement to the class, is there anyone here who, I mean, if anyone here is going to have issues with this, you need to talk to your medical.
Yeah,
And not, and
definitely.
leave it at that. So
Yeah,
they
like
can
if you want to
apply
be,
that.
yeah, if you want to be safe, that is the best bet. I believe Christine and I, we came up with some language, for Title IX, and we gave it to Michael Takeda, who is part of Academic Senate. So that language you can put into your syllabus, and or your whatever it may be that you give out to your students. But yeah, there's language there that you can put and kind of make known to the class, right? So that way you're not really singling out anybody. So ask your Academic Senate people for that language. But yeah, those are some good, that was a very good discussion, but,
We
go
did
ahead.
have a question in the chat. Melina says, does the safety data sheet of the chemical being used indicates that can harm the fetus? That it can harm the fetus?
Like, so are you asking, is there a safety data sheet that is given out to these students, or what exactly, can you clarify the question?
Yeah, are those available in class for them to know which chemicals are harmful to them and not, so they can make those decisions based on, I mean, because they're not professionals in the chemicals they're using in the course. So is there a sheet indicating the safety data sheet representing, saying, hey, this is a biohazard, or you need certain equipment to use this chemical and so forth?
I am not quite sure if there is a safety data sheet, right, that is given out, per whatever science course, or, there is, but, if you have, you know, for your class, right, if you have like a list of chemicals that you're going to be using, or you know what you're doing for lab, right? Just kind of have that in your syllabus, and have the students check with their medical provider. I think that's just a disclaimer that you just need to have. I don't know if there's any sheets out there that do indicate, like, you know, that, hey, there are these certain, like, chemicals or labs that is going to be harmful for the fetus. I think they just need to take that to their medical professionals to discuss over. Jocelyn, do you want to add anything to that?
Not to that particular point, because I think you're right. We're just not sure is if there is those types of sheets that are already given out. I think that if there is, it's great, and they should be, because it does provide the students the opportunities to be aware of things that they might come in contact with. It's just always best to not make assumptions on if there is a pregnant student in your classroom. And it's just I think just a blanket, this is what might cause some specific issues. You might want to be take it to your medical provider in general. Or putting those languages inside of your syllabus is, I think, just the best way to go about it, because you're making everybody aware at one time. And it's not that you're singling out one particular class, you're having that for every class. I think in this situation, in the case study, I think the professor had the right intentions on providing accommodations. It's just that the student needs to be a part of that discussion and needs to be the one to eventually say, I need the accommodations, and what can you provide me? We cannot just assume that the student needs an accommodation. Is it Alana? I saw that your hand was raised. I want to give you the opportunity.
That's okay. I just wanted to share very quickly that it doesn't matter whether it's a biology class or like a gym class. The larger point isn't about whether like other litigation could occur or if other students are even safe using these chemicals. The larger point is what you said, which is this is about a professor approaching a student and saying, I know you're pregnant, and so I'm going to exclude you from this assignment, right? So I was just trying to support you all. This is just a Title IX seminar.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That
right,
totally
that's-
understood. I just want to make sure
Thank
people do
you.
realize that there are other ways that
Yeah, but-
that could be a problem.
Yeah, but we can't get into that.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm not opening discussion. I just want people to not walk away thinking, oh, we don't need to do that.
Thank you. I know I appreciate how much everyone is participating, and appreciate the dialogue. I think it's great. I think it's great that we have these types of conversations. Title IX, if you guys have not seen in the news, it's becoming a hot topic. It's becoming a big issue. So it's something that we all just need to be more cautious and aware of. Yeah. We'll go ahead and move on to the next case study, because we have quite a few.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Okay, so case study number 3. You are approached by student A. Student A shares that she is pregnant and is being treated unfairly by a faculty member and would like to drop the class. Student A tells you that she has informed her professors that she will need to take time off for medical appointments and has requested accommodations to complete her coursework. However, one of her professors tells student A, if you are pregnant, you'll have to deal with it on your own. You might not be able to pass the class if you miss any more work. Is this Title IX or a Title IX issue, and what would you do?
Yes, it is. I don't know. Can we report other faculty members? I guess we would. Right? Because they can't do that. I mean, you don't have to grant everything, but Gladys been super helpful to me because I've had 2 pregnant students in the last couple semesters. So, she's really helped me work through what reasonable accommodations would be. And so do we report other professors? I guess so, right? So if they come to us, then yeah, we would have to report the professor who has made that statement.
Well, is it Title IX or is it more of a FEHA?
It is Title IX. Whether it's something else, I don't know, but it's Title IX because the student's pregnant.
Okay, well, no, I understand that, but I'm just saying it's an accommodation issue, not a harassment issue. But if we're
Pregnancy accommodations fall under Title IX.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. Yeah, I know.
And it could very well possibly be a harassment issue. If it could possibly lead into that. It all just depends.
Yeah.
Depends on how far the conversation previously went. It depends on what conversations occur afterwards too.
Yes. So thank you for the discussion. Yes, I have worked with Lana on some cases or some incidents. So feel free, again, like I said, feel free to email me if you have questions in terms of pregnancy or accommodations, because it is covered under Title IX. And so we can go through that together. But for this scenario, right, or this case study, it is, I saw a couple of yeses in the chat. But yeah, it could definitely be a potential Title IX issue. Because, like I said before, Title IX protects students from discrimination based on their pregnancy-related condition. And, the comment that the professor made, right? It kind of sounds discriminatory and unprofessional. If you're pregnant, you have to deal with it on your own. You might not be able to pass the class if you miss any more work, right? So, that is not helpful for the students for sure. We want to be able to support our students. And by saying that, obviously, it's not being supportive. Also, the students under Title IX has rights to reasonable accommodations if requested. And this could be something like, making up work that they have missed or even deadline extensions. And this is, like I said before, this is all case by case. And, what's reasonable, it's really dependent on the student's medical condition, as well as the course that they're currently taking as well too, right? And so what you should do is, advise the students that they do have rights under Title IX, connect them with the Title IX coordinator, and avoid promising outcomes, like just reassure them that they are going to be supported, and, we have to go by, what is reasonable, right? And, you can do this by, looping me into the conversation as well. We can all be on this email to make sure that we're all on the same page. I can also reiterate to the student, we sometimes like they're asking for like, oh, I need a month off. Like maybe that's not reasonable, right? Because they're kind of missing a lot of a lot of the coursework, right? And we'll find other options for them if they're not able to, fully partake in the whole semester, right? So let's go to, do you have anything to add, Jocelyn?
It's just coming from the last session. We had a question about when a time frame was reasonable to even request accommodations, and one of them was that extending past the end date of the course. Sometimes that might occur, especially in our pregnant students, right? Sometimes they don't know when they're going to go into labor. They might have been anticipating to go into labor after the class, but they go into premature labor. And so sometimes that might be an accommodation request that's made as well. And those conversations could be had between Gladdy, yourself, and the students. Sometimes I think they were talking about there's a lot of options for withdrawals or incompletes and things. So just know that that's always a possibility as well.
Yeah, and then we definitely want to have that conversation, kind of let the student know like all of their options, right? That, these are possibilities, not necessarily that, it's going to happen, right? Because we never know, right? Because sometimes students ask for like, oh, I need a extension for this assignment or whatever, but it happens that they were able to complete it, right? So it just really depends on the situation. And then like Jocelyn was saying, we've had students, who, were in labor earlier than what they had anticipated, and they had missed their final or like a project or one project or whatever it may be, right? And then it's like already the end of the semester. And so, in those type of circumstances, you would probably, it'd be like reasonable to probably give out like an incomplete, right? So that way, once they have the baby or recover, they can come back and take that one last final or complete that one last project or whatever it may be, right? So it's really a case by case issue. Okay. Case study number 4. While grading assignments, you read a student's reflective essay that includes a reference to being sexually assaulted during their first year on campus. They mentioned feeling isolated and that no one helped them. What do you do? So it's a little bit of a tough question, but I've been asked this before in another presentation, actually. So that's where this case study came from. I'm seeing report the incident, see something, say something. Are there any other thoughts out there?
Well, I would think you'd have to make sure that the student wants you to report the incident too, because there's confidentiality problems. But if they went and wrote it, then I guess.
So in this situation, what could be suggested is that the instructor has a conversation with the student. If you're not comfortable having that conversation with the student, I see a reference of refer them to the dean. I would just rope in Gladdy. It's one of those less people know, get them to the right people kind of a situation. Because you are responsible employees, this is also something that you would want to report. You don't want to call the police because without permission, we can't do that unless they are a minor. But it's important that someone get in contact with the student. There is no, within Title IX, there is no time frame of when an incident can be reported. So in this case, it's saying that the student was sexually assaulted during their first year on campus. They could be in their second, third, fourth year with us, right? It could still be reported. We would then look at this and say, okay, talk to the student, find out who else is involved. If the person who has been alleged to commit the act is a student, then it becomes a Title IX issue for us because they are both students. Within Title IX, we have to have control over the respondent, meaning the student, this respondent has to be an enrolled student or an employee. So I know that these kind of situations can be tough, but I think given the nature of our industry, this does occur, right? We do see these sometimes. So it's just important to have those conversations. Loop in Gladdy, because Gladdy, even if the student doesn't want to proceed with the Title IX incident reporting, there are resources that Gladdy has that are outside organizations that could provide some support to the students as well.
Yeah, we do have a lot of local resources that we work with, like the Marjaree Mason, RCS Fresno, which is the Great Counseling Services of Fresno. We have Beloved Survivors. It just depends on the situation, right? So we'll direct them to that, appropriate resource. We also have on-campus resources as well too that's available to the students, right? Such as health services or psych services as well too. So, there's, they don't have to go through this alone. And I think that's kind of the reason why you report, one of the reasons why you report, right? Not just because, you're a responsible employee under our policy, but also, they're writing about this for a reason, right? They in the sense almost asking for help in a sense, right? Because they feel isolated and they feel like no one has helped them. So, we want to be able to do our best to, support that student in whatever way they need. My advice would be to, have a conversation with a student privately, and let them know that you're going to share the information that was disclosed to you to me, right? Because you're a responsible employee and that's what you're supposed to do per our policy. And it's up to them whether or not they want to have a conversation with me. And you can let them know that too, that it's okay that, they don't have to come talk to me. But you are required to report it to the Title IX person. So. Did we get anything from the chat?
We do have a question here that said, do we need permission from the victim to report to include Gladdy? Sarang did respond in the chat, but Sarang's response was no permission needed as you are a responsible employee. But as Gladdy had been saying, you want to let the student know that you will have to report the incident. Melina asked, what is the best way for them to reach out to you, Gladdy?
Okay, so the best way to reach out to me is through email. You as the instructor who has, since you've received this information, right, you can write me the email as well too, and connect us if that's what the student wants, but just reach out through email. That's probably the best way for them to reach me. And there's another question. If I do not report it, aren't I held liable in some way? In terms of not reporting, okay, so it depends. So if the student is, because I know we have like dual enrollment students, right? High school enrichment students. If the student is under the age, and they're a minor, then you're a mandatory reporter. So by law, you have to report to law enforcement, right? In terms of, if they're an adult, right? And they're going to college and then they're writing about this incident that happened to them, you know, per policy, right? Per our ARs, like you're supposed to report it to the Title IX coordinator. Yeah, you're supposed to report it. I mean, in terms of being held liable in some way, I mean, I'm not, Jocelyn could speak on this, right? But it's always a safer bet to report just in case something happens, right? Because you don't want, say the student, you don't report it and the student ends up like, harming themselves because of the situation or whatever it may be. And then like the parents or the family finds out that, the school was made aware, but nothing was done.
Mhm.
That could open up lawsuits for us, liability for us, right? So, it's kind of, I think of it as like, traffic regulations and violations, right? Like we all know that you're supposed to go 65 on the freeway, or if you go over, that's on you. You know what I mean? Like if you get caught, if you go over. So that's kind of, I feel like in terms of reporting, that's how it is. It's kind of like, we've told you all that you're responsible employees, you're required to report, but if you don't, that's kind of at your discretion and you will have to suffer the consequences if there are any. Yeah.
Yeah, and I won't say we have seen it locally. We've seen it in information that has been shared with us where schools have been made aware of certain events and certain issues, and nothing was reported higher up than where it was reported at initially. And then that became a bigger issue. As Gladys said, if their lawsuits become involved, then the districts were actually found to be liable for certain other issues that occurred after the fact because the incident was never reported and the school didn't do their obligation. Our obligation, as I had said earlier, is to stop, remedy, and prevent. So we want to make sure that we are doing all of those things. And that's why making sure that you're reporting incidents that you are made aware of allows us to fulfill our obligations.
So I'm going to go ahead and do we're going to go to the next case study, and Josh, then you can take
Which
that.
is me. Okay. So a student approaches you during office hours looking visibly shaken. The student confides that they have been experiencing dating violence from their partner, which has escalated recently. Although the incidents occur off campus, the student feels that it's affecting their mental health and academic performance. The student expresses uncertainty about what to do next and whether the school can help in this situation. Is this a Title IX issue, and what do you do? Anyone want to take a stab at it?
So Alana said in the chat, is the domestic partner an FCC student or FCC employee?
So it could or it couldn't be, right? It depends. So if it is the domestic partner is part of FCC, if they're a student or an employee, yes, it could become a Title IX issue. If they are not, it still might become a Title IX issue in the sense that the student might need those accommodations, those supportive measures that we are able to provide. Because it occurs off campus, doesn't mean that it won't occur on campus, right? So it could kind of go both ways. It's important that you connect the student with Gladys to provide those supportive measures so that she can inform the student what there is available for that student. Sometimes we might see that there are students who are experiencing domestic violence and in the process of getting away from their partners, and the school is the only place that the partner knows that they can possibly run into the student. So if that becomes an issue, right, Gladys is able to connect the student with police to get police escorts to and from to their car or to class. We want to try to be able to make our students feel as safe as possible as they can while they are on campus. Gladys, you want to add anything?
I think you pretty much covered it. You know, the scenario is saying like, you know, the situation has recently escalated, right? And so we don't know what that means or what that entails, you know, it 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 is the best possible the best possible thing you could do is to report it immediately, because you know you just don't know, like not only is the student that, sorry, I cannot speak because it was after lunch. So we don't know, you know, if the student, if that other partner is gonna be harming the student, right? Or if that's gonna affect like the whole campus. So, you know, we want to make sure that everyone is safe, not just, you know, the student themselves, but because, you know, this might be like a timing thing, right? Or like something might escalate super quickly and we just don't want anything bad to happen, you know. So definitely report it. You know, they have options, and I think district wide, you know, we've been seeing an increase of, you know, dating domestic violence issues as well too. So be on the lookout. You know, there's a lot of local resources out there that are super helpful that we can connect the student with. Same for, you know, I know someone mentioned in the comments that, you know, we refer them to counseling. That's great. You know, that's another option that we do have for the student. So we just want to make sure that the student gets some kind of support. Okay. Is there anything else to add? I hit the next.
No, you can hit the next one.
Okay.
Okay, so case study number 6. One of your students seems tired and overwhelmed. When you ask how they're doing, they share that they lost their job, are struggling to afford food, and even though they cannot pay, even though they can still pay rent. You're concerned and want to help. You give the student your personal contact information and take the student to a nearby restaurant to make sure they get a meal and feel supported. Is this a Title IX issue? And what are other ways to support the student?
Anybody want to?
Anyone?
So someone put RAM pantry and financial aid. Awesome.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, Ram Pantry.
Make a case
Someone.
to get help.
Yes.
Resources, campus resources.
No to getting the meal off of campus. Yes, all great responses. So while it's not really a Title IX issue, this is an issue that we are seeing more common with our students. And it's one of those, they're not an issue until they're an issue, right? So yes, I probably would not be giving out my personal contact information. That can sometimes lead to other issues. And getting the meal off campus. We have resources on campus for our students. We've already mentioned them. We have the RAM Pantry. Fresno City College has the new basic resource team that has resources available for the students. So it's always better to connect them to the resources on campus. You want to make sure that, I understand that you want to make sure that students are feeling supported and that they are being fed, but you also need to kind of maintain that line between what is professional as their instructor and them being a student. Thank you, Gladys. So number 7, a student asks to speak to you behind closed doors and discloses that they were in a consensual, intimate relationship with one of their instructors for several months, and discloses that over the weekend, the instructor forced them to perform sexual acts that they did not consent to. The student informed you that since the encounter, they have cut off communication with the instructor, but they are fearful because the instructor continues to contact them and they are concerned about running into the instructor on campus. Is this a Title IX issue, and what do you do? Alana was quick. Yes, reach out to Gladys and report it. Todd said, yikes. Yes, report. Yes, everyone is correct. Yes. This is something that I would love to say has not occurred, but unfortunately we have received these types of reports these are actually all cases that we have had. So this also is other issues as well. It's not only is it Title IX, it's violation of our consensual relationships policy and procedures. So there are just a lot of issues with this. You do want to make sure that you are notifying both Gladys and Christine because it involves students and an employee. And then that way we can provide the student with the resources necessary. Is there any question? Here's someone coming
I have
off
a
of
question.
mute. Yes.
Who's Christine?
Christine Phillips is our direct. She has a very long and weird title. She is the district director of EEO and professional development. And I think there's another word in there, but she's a district director within each HR, and she is the district Title IX coordinator. At the end of the slides, we'll have contact information, and her contact information will be there for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That scenario that you just
Yes.
shared was a very similar scenario happened in the 80s at Fresno City College, and the professor ended up being shot and paralyzed by one of the students that he was romantically involved with.
I had not heard that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember who the professor was. I wasn't working here, but full-time, but yeah.
Wow. And we
Yeah,
might
because
have
the professor had a romantic relationship with one student, broke it off, and started having a romantic relationship with a second student. The first student came back, shot the professor, and then went to shoot the second student, who was the second romantic relationship. She held up her textbook and it stopped the bullet.
I actually had him for a class in the 70s. He was in a wheelchair.
Yeah, he was paralyzed.
He's a very good teacher, but that one really shocked me. It was after I'd had him a few years, but it was quite a shock.
Wow. That is quite a story. Like, that's why it's important to, to report, right? Because like, you don't know what's going to happen. And by reporting, we can give, the parties their options of like, hey, do you want to report this to law enforcement, to campus PD? We can do no contact orders. There can be a restraining order put in place as well that the campus PD can help do, right? Through the criminal system. So, there's options. So that's the importance of reporting.
Peg, our retired dean, said once to everybody, if you're out somewhere and there's someone you think you want to get to know and date, the first question out of your mouth is, are you a student from Fresno City at Fresno City College? If the answer is yes, you say, oh, okay. And that's it. You're done.
I like that piece of advice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely want to do that because, you just never know. Never know. Okay. So case study number 8. Employee B reports that employee A has repeatedly commented that the two of them would make a cute couple, ending statements with, if I wasn't married. Employee B initially laughed these comments off as jokes, but states that the ongoing nature of their remarks has become uncomfortable and unwelcomed. Is this a Title IX issue, and what would you do?
Wait, so are we employee B or are we just an observer?
you're an employee that employee B came to. So it's like coworkers amongst coworkers. So it would be like me going to Gladdy and telling Gladdy that Sarang said we would make a cute couple if she wasn't married.
That's, I mean, I think you should report. I mean, that's the protocol that we would need to do, but I think it's also tricky. Like, could you just advise the employee who's your friend to report? So it's not like you're tattletelling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like the hard part. You don't want to, you know, tattletale on your colleagues, but just, I mean, they're adults. Like, look, this is a heads up, or do you have to report as an employee? What's the policy?
Well, the policy is you're supposed to report anything that is considered sexual harassment or sexual in nature, sexual misconduct. But in this situation, I understand where you're coming from. You are all employees, you're all colleagues. Sometimes jokes are made. It's a possibility that employee A isn't aware that the comments are making employee B uncomfortable or unwelcome. So it could be that employee A, has that conversation with employee B, or sorry, employee B has the conversation with employee A saying, hey, I know you're probably joking, but these are making me very uncomfortable. So can you stop? I think those conversations are important. It's important to have that open communication. But at the same time, if employee B says those things to employee A and employee A doesn't stop, and employee B is telling you, what do I do? Then yes, it's that having that conversation between you and employee B too. Report it. You should report it to so-and-so. Or, as you know, our policies state we're all responsible employees. Now I have to report it. Do you want to report it yourself? Kind of a situation. I get it. It could be tough. It could be tough feeling like it does kind of might feel like you're tattletelling on your colleagues.
It's a dicey, I used to do this work some years ago, so and have a situation, and it's a dicey one because it's the balance between pervasive and severe. So it's not really very severe, and it needs to be addressed. It's not pervasive because it was once. If it's going on a lot, well, now it's pervasive and now we have an issue, big issue. But you're right, it should be addressed. And I remember a situation kind of like it where what I did was simply have a meeting with the person, their supervisor, give them a rip, really, but not, carry it any further. And that may be enough. So it's kind of that balance between how frequent is it versus how severe is it,
Yeah.
And then you have
to,
but the bell has been rung, as we would say, right? So you have to.
Yeah. But I think those conversations, like you said, are important to have even with your supervisor of, hey, this was told to me. Might want to have a conversation between the two employees. Maybe it's just the employees need to come together to have that conversation.
Yeah, it sounds like in today's environment, I mean, society's increasingly become more litigious and sensitive to issues which are important. And but when you have any doubts or questions, I think it's important probably, I mean, what I'm getting as a takeaway is if you have a doubt, talk to somebody further up and seek advice, right? Like you don't necessarily have to report, but you can say, hey, here's the situation. What do I do? I mean, would that be a good rule of thumb?
Yeah. Every situation that gets told to us does not become a Title IX issue. It is just the making someone aware for us to be able to have conversations if necessary as well. So not everything that is reported to us. So those numbers that I provided to you earlier don't necessarily mean that's everything that was told to us. Those are just issues that actually became Title IX issues.
So is there like a time period on this? Like, does it have to be occurring this week, this month, this semester, last year, 10 years ago? Like, yeah.
Like a statute of limitations?
Right?
No, there is no statute. No, there is no statute of limitations within Title IX. Actually, recently there was something that was passed in the K-12 realm that's allowing people to bring up issues from, I don't know, what was it? over 20 years ago. I can't remember, but there's no statute of limitations on when something occurred and when it should be reported. It's one of those, as soon as you kind of find out about it, you should say something.
Definitely. We do have a question in the chat. How does one know when pervasive goes to the other term?
You don't have to make that determination. That gets to be determined by Gladys and Christine. So you don't have to really worry about if it's meeting that SPU. It's just, I think you kind of said it best earlier, Zoltan. See something, say something, right? If you receive the information, say something.
Yeah, and I know we're going through all these like case studies, you know, we're asking like, hey, is this a Title IX issue or whatever it may be, right? Like your only duty is just to report. It is not to investigate. That's our jobs, you know, and to determine things, right? Because there's a lot of missing parts, right? To even make that determination of like, hey, is it pervasive? Is it gonna be, you know, severe or objectively offensive? Like there's a lot of I guess evidence you could say that goes into determining, you know, if it is a Title IX violation, right? And that threshold is very high, and most of the time that incident doesn't even meet Title IX, just because you have to meet all of those criterias, right? So
Yeah. So even within Title IX, we are operating under what's currently referred to as the 2020 regulations, and they were issued by the Trump administration, their first term. Within those regulations, we have very specific definitions in regards to each of the areas within Title IX, and it has to fall within that definition. So it's like Lottie said, it's a lot of evidence that we have to possibly collect to determine if it even meets a Title IX issue. It's a lot of conversation between our team of the Title IX team of discussing of where it does it appear to fall within that area. So while, yes, we're trying to make everyone aware of, is this a Title IX issue? Is it not a Title IX issue? I think it's mostly just so that we're trying to make everyone aware of any of these issues that could possibly happen, and making sure that people are aware of issues that should be reported to us.
So that was the last case study. Okay, I know we went through a lot of case studies, and thank you so much for all your participation. That was a really great discussion. Like I loved it. So if you're made aware, right?
I have another question.
Go ahead.
So what if you hear people like doing locker room talk, you know, like they're your colleagues, they're doing locker room talk, it's at work, it's on campus. Like, how do you deal with that? Because like you got to balance relationships with this kind of stuff too, you know?
That's a tough one. We've had discussions like that on how to deal with those. I think the best, are you asking that they're in the middle of this locker room talk and they're talking about things that,
fully hypothetical.
yeah, but that make you uncomfortable, or that there's incidents that they're discussing that you feel fall within Title IX that involves other employees and students? I guess that's which way are you referring to?
I think just, you know, hypothetically, people talking about stuff that isn't regarding students, or it's regarding something that happened a long time ago, but you know, it's kind of like, it's probably not the most professional thing to chat about, but you know, they're guys talking, you know.
Yeah. I would suggest maybe, if you're comfortable enough having the conversation with the other faculty members of like, hey, I just don't think that's a conversation that we should be having in this particular environment, or you know, it makes me uncomfortable. Can we maybe not discuss it? If you feel like you're not comfortable having that conversation, you can always also go to the dean, and have the dean kind of have other conversations. I get that happens, and I get that occurs. I get that sometimes it might not be comfortable to kind of have those types of discussions with your colleagues. So just know that there are others within the district that would be able to support you in having those difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's good advice. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for answering that. All
Yeah.
right. So, how to report. If you are made aware of a Title IX incident, then you can, again, contact me directly. You can email me. My email is also on our Title IX webpage. My email is long just because my last name is long. So you can click on it, and it'll take you directly right to my email link or to the, open up Outlook for you. So even if, complaints don't reach the threshold of Title IX or SPU, right, it still could be investigated under a different policy or process, right? Like for instance, for students, right? Since I deal with student interactions or incidents, a lot of the times it doesn't meet Title IX or doesn't meet SPU. And so I would refer it out to Sean Henderson or Dean Henderson, right, who is our Dean of Student Services, because, we're going to have to probably investigate this through like student conduct, right? Because student conduct kind of catches like all types of other harassments, like bullying and whatever it may be, right? Depending on the situation. So, it's always good to report. And then if the situation involves an employee or a student worker, you're going to go ahead and contact Christine Phillips at the district office. Her email is also on our Title IX webpage, not just Fresno City Title IX webpage, but also district Title IX webpage as well. So you can, our emails, our contact information is on there. And then you can also file an online complaint. So that is going to be found on both our Title IX web pages, right? For the district office and for Fresno City College. It's going to be like a link that says like file a formal complaint or something, or file a complaint.
File Title IX.
Yeah, file a Title IX complaint. And so it's going to be a form, and then to the best of your ability, fill it out. You can even include evidences such as like photos, documents, and this can be only accessed by the Title IX coordinators, right? And it'll be rated appropriately as well too. And so when you do this online form, it kind of prompts us to have a formal investigation, because it's like one of the one of the things in the regulation, right? Like for there to be a formal investigation, it has to be done in writing. So that's what we usually use the online complaint form for. And then
before we move on though, in regards to the online complaint form, I would just, unless you are the one who is involved in the Title IX incident, I would not necessarily file a complaint on behalf of a student, because filing the complaint on that form, as Gladys had said, it makes it a formal complaint, and that makes you the complainant. I would just encourage the student to file that complaint using that form.
Or email me, and then I'll reach out to the student and we'll talk about it. And then I'll let that student know, like, hey, if a formal complaint is what they want to proceed with, then, we'll do, we have our process and we'll let them know. So just contact me. And then you can also report to campus PD or local law enforcement as well. But again, you need the consent from the complainant, unless the complainant is a minor, right? Because you're a mandatory reporter if they're underage. And then we also have confidential support, like health services and psychological services. So those, like Jocelyn was saying, those who work in health services, like the nurses, right, and psych services, the psychologists, right, who are working under their license and are being disclosed, Title IX related issues, they don't have to report it to me or to Christine, because they're confidential. So those are other options. And then we also have, students can also always go to local agencies outside of the campus as well too. And so this is a list of our related board policies and ARs as well. If you want a fun read, go check these out. It talks about, we have sections on, harassment in general, harassment under Title IX. It talks about all of our process and like, what it is, what Title IX, a formal investigation looks like, and the process and stuff like that, consensual relationships. We also, again, we have resources that's on and off campus, right? We have basic need, the food pantry, health services, psych services, campus PD, and then we also have our local agencies as well. And then here is the contact information for Christine Phillips, who is our Title IX coordinator at the district office, and my contact information as well too. So yeah, and this information and pretty much all of this information is on our Title IX webpage as well. And then I think that is it. We want to thank you all for joining us and being engaging in our case studies. And we want to thank our interpreters as well and those who made this all happen, Flexi happen. So thank you all. And then we're gonna open it up for questions as well too.
Yes, if there's any other questions that anyone has.